Okay, now I'm going to breeze over factor analysis quickly. And the reason for that is that in some ways, factor analysis is pretty simple. And so without getting bogged down in the statistical techniques, which are quite complicated, I just want you to think about a data set where you have lots of variables that are observable. That means that you've asked questions. For example, think about a narcissism scale where people ask a number of questions that they feel will elicit narcissistic responses if a person has narcissism as a personality disorder. And so let's say that they have 30 questions that they ask. Well, for those of us who are familiar with narcissism, we know that there are several underlying factors that go along with being a narcissist. And so a question that someone who makes such a scale might want to ask is, are our variables grouping together in accordance with the latent factors, the underlying factors that are associated with narcissism? So that's why factor analysis is called a data reduction technique. It takes a lot of data and it makes it more manageable, easier to understand, and a lot of psychological tests are built on the procedures of factor analysis. Now, you have probably encountered the term rotation of factors, and there's, of course, many different ways to rotate factors. Varimax, Equimax, and there are others. There are rotations that make the factors orthogonal, which means that they're not correlated with each other. Then there are other kinds of rotation which allow for the factors to be correlated with each other. I don't think it's too important to know that level of detail, except to know that you can rotate factors, and that will, if you do it, make it easier to interpret them, because it'll make changes to the factor structure so that it's more clear what items are loading on what factors. So in my example, let's just say that we put all this data in to PASW and we asked for a factor analysis, and we got 3 factors. Now the factors will not be named. It'll just be factor 1, factor 2, factor 3, and it's the job of you, the researcher, to ask yourself, what are these items tapping into? I know that items, let's say 7, 15, 30, and 30, all are on factor 1. What do they have in common? This is what you have to ask yourself, and you have to come up with an answer. This isn't really all that scientific. I mean, it is scientific, but it's not completely objective. It's more of a subjective procedure. And let's just say that you say, you know, what these variables that load on factor 1 all have in common is that they have a self-aggrandizing tone. And then on factor 2, we have these other variables that are all seeming to hang together. On that factor, they all seem to be associated with a lack of empathy. And then our third factor, I just made this up, by the way, but anyway, the third factor is a sense of alienation. So, okay, that's factor analysis in a short overview.